right, we're back for episode 8 of the Dirt Beers podcast with your host Beef and Jonathon. This week, our guest, none other than Gordy Gundaker, super late model driver. Gordy, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man, appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited about doing this. I love keeping up with all the Instagram stuff and everything, so this should be fun.
Awesome. We like to start out with just going over the 2024 stats of our guests if they're a driver.
Oh, great. These aren't that good.
Hey.
Seems like a good time to crack one then.
Yeah. Let's crack a beer first here.
Yeah.
Jonathan went with the classic bottle this week. I got my normal Bud Light, and Gordy's rocking a tall boy, heavy duty Budweiser.
That's right.
Cheers, boys.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at your stats, I got these off your website. So 32 races, no wins unfortunately this year, but 5 top 5s, 14 top 10s. We're going to get into the 2024 season a little bit later, but we like to start out with, the background on everybody. So what was it like growing up? Your family's been involved in racing for a long time. How did you get your start, and when did you get that bug to start wheeling race cars?
Yeah, I pretty much, was kind of born into it, with dad racing. I didn't know anything else but the racetrack when I first started, So, I grew up every weekend. We go to Peevely, go to Tri-City, go to St. Charles Speedway, right around here in the Midwest. And, Dad used to go down to Volusia in, February and speed weeks. And so really just, I fell in love with it from a really little age. And then we started racing quarter midgets when I was 5 or 6. And that's kind of where I just kind of got going. We would run it a couple tracks here in Illinois and just bounce around and just kind of got my feet wet in it. But, heck, I was riding four-wheelers when I was 2 or 3 years old. So I just, was all about it. And, I feel like the first few times really the first time, my dad tells a funny story. I don't try to remember it, but he said the first time that we raced, they pushed me off and I made a couple laps, junior novice. He said I shut the car off and he said he'd walk over to me and he said I was like in tears, like it scared me. And he's like, what the hell's wrong with you? He's like, you go way faster than this on your four-wheeler. Like, just imagine like you're riding your four-wheeler. And whatever, that kicked like a switch in me. And then the next week, my second weekend, I won. And then, I just like from there, just fell in love with it, And I think growing up, I was fortunate, to be around a lot, obviously my dad and all them, but, he had so many friends and their kids were my age. It just so happened, and we all raced together. So it was fun to go to the racetrack on the weekends and race quarter midgets and stuff because it was with all your friends and, it was still competitive, but it was just something you fell in love with because it was way more than just showing up to race. Like it was a full racing family, from the very beginning, which I was used to anyways, just with dad. But yeah, we grew up doing that. And then I think I ran go-karts for like 6 months and I hated it just because in my personal opinion, I don't think go-kart racing is all that great. It's just a bunch of guys running over each other and it wasn't for me. So
yeah.
After about 6 months that I told dad, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to race go-karts. And so we actually bought a sportsman car. And then about that time is when the crate series kind of picked up in our area. So we never even raced the sportsman. We got rid of it, got a crate car and kicked off when I was 14 racing crates. And then it just kind of funneled off from there.
And at what point in your life did the G-Man nickname come about and who dubbed you that?
Actually, Rick Eshelman gave me that one, the late, great Rick Eshelman. There for a while, I had like 7 nicknames. It felt like everybody had a new one for me. And I ran the Summer Nationals. I want to say it was 2016. And Rick was obviously doing all the Summer National races. And every day he'd see me, he'd go, G-Man, and then that next thing you know, that translated onto while he was announcing. And it just kind of stuck. I liked it. Growing up, everybody called me G or double G's or all kind of stuff. And G-Man just kind of ran with it. And I like it. So it's, it doesn't sound bad at all. So, yeah, it was cool. Obviously, it's neat looking back now knowing that Rick gave me that one. I miss that man every day. He was awesome. And I had a lot of fun with him. So it's kind of cool to carry that, tradition on even for him.
Yeah, definitely. Rick is a legend in himself, and it's pretty cool to get your nickname from a guy like that. But going back, you talk about your first big car being a sportsman car. Do you remember the first time you strapped into that thing? Like, what were your feelings, and maybe where was it? Do you remember how you did? Just take us through that.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. We never even end up racing the Sportsman. So we got
Okay.
the Sportsman, and then we ended up getting a crate car. So the first race I ever ran was actually at my parents' track at Tri City. They used to have a big crate late model race at the end of the year. It was the Crate Nationals, which naturally get like 60, 70 crate cars. So I got thrown to the wolves the first time. The day that we went to practice earlier that week, and actually the block that we got from the crate motor we got, the block was cracked in it. Didn't know it, so we 6 laps into practice, this thing spilling antifreeze all over the place.
Oh,
So we don't even get to practice. We went back to the shop, got it fixed. So I go out to qualify, for the first time. Spun out twice in qualifying. Spun out in the heat race, spun out in the B main. I was distraught. I was like, wow, man, I'm not cut out for this shit, and I was so mad. And my dad's like, listen, it happens. It's all good. We'll be fine. We'll keep going. So then we go from Tri City, which granted, of all places, we go to two big places to start. So Tri City is its own animal. And then the next week they used to run I believe it was the World 50 at Kentucky Lake, is when they used to have it. So they had a super late model show. So we go to Kentucky Lake to run, and all the big guys are there, guys that I've looked up to my whole career, and like guys that I'm friends with. Brian Burkhofer's there, Rick Eckert's there, and Kenny Schrader and Kenny Wallace are both racing. So now I feel like I got a lot of pressure, to do good in front of these guys. Go out, we win our heat race. There was like 30 cars, win the heat race, and we're running third in the feature. Probably 10 laps in was pretty good, and I'm like, man, this will be all right. And the guy running second spun right in front of me, and I absolutely smoked him. So that ended that weekend, but it was an experience for sure, and I got used to speed pretty quick, because at Kentucky Lake you hauled ass, even in a crate car. So, right then it was like, okay, once you got that feeling, it just takes confidence, and but it was a whole different world, because when you go from getting strapped into a go-kart or a quarter midget that weighs nothing and you can move around, and then strapped into a 2,500-pound race car, shit changes in a hurry. And it did too. And you know what? Right then and there, I obviously fell even harder in love with it, and knew that's what I wanted to do for as long as I could. And, luckily we're still here today doing it.
Fair enough, man. I mean, from the time that you strapped into that first full-size race car, how has your driving style, I guess, evolved and changed over your career? And do you almost always have the same approach anytime you get on the track? Like, are you always looking for the bottom, always testing out the top first? What's your kind of approach at this point in your career when it comes to driving these full-size race cars?
Yeah, when you first start, obviously the biggest thing is like you're just out there making laps. You really don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just kind of winging it every night. And as you progress, you start, seeing the track changes when you roll out there, for one, but then it's just like, when the racetrack moves, you get better at deciding when you need to be in the top, when you need to be in the middle, when you need to be in the bottom, like all those different things. And, obviously over my career, I've been known to be a guy who runs around the infield, I would say better than most. And I don't really know where that came from, because if you watch highlights of my dad race, he used to just rip the spoiler off this thing every night. And, but I think just over time, I always migrated to watching guys like Billy Moyer and Burkhofer and Bloomer, and you watch those guys and they never destroyed their stuff. They took care of it. At the end of 100-lap races, they didn't have pieces and parts hanging off their cars. You listen to all of Scott's interviews growing up, how he always talked about keeping, taking care of his tires and being there at the end. And that's something I try to pride myself on. I feel like I've had good finishes in long races, 100-lap races and stuff like that. I think it's just from kind of having that mentality. I do wish sometimes I had some of that fuck it mentality, in me, where I just would go up there and blast the fence and not, throw all caution in the wind. But it's one of those things that's just not exactly, no, I don't want to say it's not there, because I don't mind getting up there and ripping on the top. It's not that, but I just know, I've always learned to respect my equipment. I mean, I work on my own stuff, and I can tell you that fixing decks at 3 a.m. when you got to race the next day is not all that fun.
No, we like in between here, throwing some different questions. And I know you did race a different discipline of racing. We're going to talk about it, your first ever Chili Bowl trip this year. But if you had to run a different discipline of racing or a different class of car as your main deal, what would be something that you would want to do? It could be dirt, it could be asphalt, it could be anything.
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. I really enjoy watching the 410 sprint cars, around the Outlaws and stuff. I've always been fascinated by those guys. I feel like their racing, not that it's so much it would correlate in the same thing, but I feel like their style is a lot like the late model style. If I wasn't racing late models, I feel like that's probably where I would have migrated to. Had my dad been growing up racing sprint cars, that's probably what I would have done. But, I really enjoyed the midget stuff, and it was fun. But that style of racing, I think, is great. But I think the 410 sprint cars is probably where I would have tried to go to if this was 16, 17 years ago, if I wouldn't have gone the late model route. I've ran modifieds, had a blast in those. I've done a little bit of different stuff, and that's why I'm trying to kind of branch out and even do more. I think it makes you a better race car driver, for one. I mean, you look at guys like Larson and Bell who can hop into all kind of different stuffs, and Tyler Courtney, and there's a lot of guys that are able to do that, and they're very well rounded. So I think it's fun to obviously be able to do those things. But yeah, I don't know. I think the sprint cars would have definitely been a pretty badass route. I mean, them guys race, really hard and all over the place. So I always try to keep up with whatever they're doing. I was just watching Dirt Vision before we got hopped on here. So you guys are knocking into my sprint car time.
Well, we'll try to keep it pretty quick because I think we all want to get back to watching some racing. Yeah. But when it comes to, maybe the side of racing that less fans see, which is the crew side of things. Can you speak to kind of the importance of having an excellent crew around you, whether it be a family type atmosphere where it's just a couple of guys who are close and that you grew up with, or, even I'm sure there's some big budget teams that you've had a chance to go up against and you're kind of walking by and you can't believe the sheer manpower that some of these teams probably have.
Yeah, man, you have to, especially to go on the national tours, having a good crew is everything. You got to rely on those guys as much as you rely on yourself, because at the end of the day, it's something my dad always taught me, races are won and lost in the shop. You really, don't get me wrong, you have to do your job on Fridays and Saturdays, but you can't have part failures. You can't have stupid things happen when you're going to these big races. And that's where there is a difference in the top level guys to the guys that maybe run up front one night and the next night you see them running 17th and you don't know why. And it's just one of those things that, maintenance, especially on our late models, man, they're so intricate now. We're looking, when we get on our spring smashers and shock, we're looking at 16ths of an inch and moving 50, 100 pounds, just by that much. And so if you're off a 16th or an eighth in a couple different places, next thing you know, you're half a second slow and you're trying to figure out why. And that's a huge deal. And so having a good crew chief or even just a maintenance guy goes a long way for your confidence when you get in a race car. Not second guessing yourself going, man, did we tighten this? Did we remember to move that? Those things definitely dictate your whole night. And so it is fun. I got to go in 2018 when I switched to Black Diamond cars. I actually went to East Bay with Earl Pearson. I went and helped them for the week and got to see how they worked and the things they were doing. And that really helped me a bunch. And it helped me so much that in 19, they went and ran the Wild West Shootout. Garrett Alverson was also driving for them. And me, Ricky Arnold, who was the crew chief with Ricky Thornton last year on the championship team, Jason Fitzgerald that races out of Florida. We were all crew guys that whole week down in Arizona. And for one, it was a blast, but two, you get to learn how these guys prepare and what really goes into it to be competitive night in and night out. And when you miss little things, you end up scratching your head at the end of the night going, man, I don't know why we run 12th. And then you get in the shop that week and get to checking things and realize you missed something here, missed something there. It's detrimental to your team, because at the end of the day, we're out here to try and make some money and finish up front. And when you're missing just little things like that, it can really hurt you. And so when you got guys around you that, for one, that are all about what you're doing, and for two, have a really good grasp on what they're doing, it helps everybody, and that's why you see the guys like RTJ and the Rocket One team and JD and those guys always up front, because they don't miss things like that.
Building off the whole crew thing, and obviously you got experience being a crew member, but if you got to do a different job on your team other than hold the steering wheel, what position do you think you would like to be in? Like, would you like to be the tire guy? Would you like to be the car chief, crew chief?
I,
What's your
I,
thinking?
I think for sure if I wasn't racing, I'd definitely like to play a crew chief role. I've had a lot of fun over the years going, and during speed weeks, I used to go down and help Hoffman when he'd run his mod. And granted, I wasn't really doing much because he knows everything about his own car. I was just more kind of there, but it's fun to go racing with guys and be the stick guy, and help some of those. One of my good buddies, Darren Klein. A couple of years ago, I blew a motor up at the Summer National race, and he was starting on the front row. And I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'll go down and stick for you." Which he had a normal guy, and I was like, "If you want me to do it," and he was like, "Dude, absolutely." Like it helps when you have a guy, somebody who knows what they're looking for. He led the whole damn thing and got over the cushion with 2 to go and let old man Moyer by him. But it was cool to see that, and I get a rise out of that. Even going and helping my little brother. I've gone and helped Trevor quite a few times where I wasn't racing and just went and crewed with him. One of the nights being last year, I let him race my car because he hurt his motor, and I wanted to work on the racetrack at Tri-City. And, I enjoy that stuff as much as I do racing. Obviously if I have a choice, I want to be in the seat, but, I always enjoy going just to the racetrack and helping any way I can. So it would be cool to be a crew chief on a top-notch team, for sure. I think, you learn a lot of things going up and down the road, and it's fun to just be around the sport in general. So hopefully I don't have to get to that point anytime soon, but maybe one day I might just be crew chief and Trevor, or hopefully I can just own his shit and tell him what to do.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
That sounds like the appropriate way to go about it, although the more expensive way. But
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if we want to call it your side hustle, your main gig, but talk about starting Checkered Customs with your cousin. And did you always want to like own your own business on top of the racing career and everything else that you got going on?
Yeah, I think growing up, my grandpa was really, really big in real estate. Built a huge company here in St. Louis back in the '60s, and it's been a staple in the city of St. Louis since then. And then growing up, Dad bought the racetrack, so he's had his own business. I felt like I always wanted to have something of my own, and really. The only reason it even come up was in 2020, we hit COVID. My cousin Trav and I were living together at that time, and we were kind of sitting on our asses. I wasn't racing. And at that point, I thought, hell, you just race forever and, figure it out from there. And when COVID happened, it was like, man, I don't really have anything back, to fall back on. And Trav was in the real estate stuff at the time. And he was like, man, we need to figure out what we should do after this. And we went across, started a landscaping company, and we were going to haul junk, and we had all kinds of different ideas. And then somehow we fell upon wanting to make racing shirts. And so we kind of looked into it, and Trav went and took a job at a t-shirt company for just a little bit, and come back and kind of said, yeah, I think we could do this. And so we fired off at the end of 21 into the beginning of 22 and started out of our house. And then that transpired into buying a older machine from Ron Slavic, who passed away during COVID. We bought it from his wife. Just kind of happened to fall in my lap when we were racing in PA there, and I believe 22. And so we bought that, and it just kind of has progressed from there. And it's pretty neat for me because it's, it's still part of racing at the end of the day. It's cool because although it's not me racing on the weekends, I still get to talk to a lot of my buddies or people who are racing every day. And, we're doing cool designs, and it's pretty neat to see some of that stuff come to life. Obviously with our racing stuff, we do all of our, my shirts now and Trevor's, and, but it's still part of the racing community. So it's something that I'm really, really intrigued in. And, it's just, it's something else that's really fun. And, it'll obviously always keep me in this game no matter what way I look at it. But, you had to have something to fall back on at the end of the day. You see a lot of these guys that have businesses outside of racing and stuff. So it is really cool to do it. And we're here pretty much every day. I skip out of town. I skip out of town when I go racing, and these boys keep digging while I'm gone. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been a crazy learning experience, but we moved into a bigger place, and we're clipping along now.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have something to fall back on and something to do alternate from racing, because racing don't last forever.
That's right.
And you always got to have a different plan. But I want to get into, I think probably I would say seems like your favorite race ever, which is the Dome.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to get into want to let you give a little bit of explanation of how your dome week went, how your prelim night went, just all the feelings you had. Just give it to us, kind of play by play.
Yeah, so the biggest thing in the dome, qualifying sets up your entire weekend there. Everything about going there is you gotta put yourself pretty much on the front row of a heat race or second row inside of a heat race, because the heat races are chaos. They only take the top two, I think, is what comes out of the heat races. That's kind of everything. It starts with pill draw. So, I knew that they had split the fields. And I went in there, I think I pill drew like 56 or something. So I pretty much knew I was going to be towards the front of Group B, which was a perfect spot to be. So went out there, qualified third, start on the front row of your heat race. Can't really draw it up much better than that. Win the heat. I think we redrew the 5, and which is a great spot to be. Start in the first 3 rows. You want to get to the lock-in spot more than anything. The last thing you want to do is be in the qualifiers on Saturday with guys who will do anything to get in that race, including run right through you. I've been a part of that before, and so. The feature, I felt like, unfortunately for the fans, the feature on Friday night was probably pretty boring. At the end of the day, it was great for the guys racing up front because you didn't have to worry about a lot of chaos happening. And I think Freddie was right in front of me running third, and I could tell he was a little loose and couldn't leave the bottom as good as I could. And I knew if once we got into lap traffic, I thought, man, if he could just slip up one time, I can kind of get my nose in there. And I got by him, and we caught a lapper at the same time. And I don't think I hit him, but it was kind of like a, hey, sorry, I go type deal. But,
just dome racing.
Yeah, man. And you expect that. And don't get me wrong, like Freddie and Freddie's one of the best dudes in the pit area. And I know for sure if we're racing side by side, we're not going to purposely run each other over, but we're also not just going to give each other the room to give a position up. And at that point, you have to go. And I knew I kind of probably squeezed him a little bit when I slid through there, but it was like, hey, man, like this is part of it. And, then unfortunately, we have a yellow with 2 to go or whatever it is. And all I could think in my mind was like, oh, shit, like what's coming. So I actually kind of laid back on the restart from Nick to make sure I didn't get bottled up with them. That's the worst thing you want to do is go in and the leader gets stopped up and Nick gets stopped up and I run in the back of him, then I'm definitely getting turned around. So I tried to leave a little gap. Well, then Freddie ass-packed me anyways going into 1. And I couldn't really tell you what all happened. I know my hands moved 7 different ways, and the next thing you know, I'm straight, so that's good. And I tried to look up at the big board and saw, I guess whenever he got me, it pushed him across there, and I had a decent gap. So I was like, okay, good. And then you get in a transfer spot and finish that deal out. It's awesome. Nick's right in front of me. That was an awesome moment, just for me and him growing up, in St. Louis together. It was cool getting out and kind of celebrating that, just because I'm telling you, it is so hard to lock into that race just in general, let alone make it, anyways on Saturday. So it takes a lot of stress off, and then you get into Saturday and it's the theatrics, it's the entertainment and the build up, and, you're there all day to run that feature. And it's like a 13-hour build up. And then, I get drawn on the front row with Sheppy. And, the hardest part about that deal is, especially the last couple of years, it's gone to the top. And it's very hard to beat Brandon Shepard and Bobby Pierce and Ricky Thornton beating the fence down. So I knew that wasn't my shot. My shot was not going to be to try and outrun them up there. So I knew if I could get out front and try to just pace the field for a little bit, and maybe keep my speed and get into lap traffic and get lost, that was about the chance I had. And felt like I did a good job of that from the beginning. Got out there and was just trying not to use up my stuff. I knew the top was going to come in at some point, but I thought, man, if I don't have to go up here and blow the deck out of this thing right away, then, I can keep my stuff under me. We'll be all right. And as soon as the yellow comes out, I was like, well, that plan's gone. And so I wish going back now, it's like it's easy to say when you look back at the replay what you should have done different, but I let Sheppy run the very top, leaving 4 on the restart, and I restarted kind of in the middle and didn't get a great start and went in and slid across 1 and 2 and was loose. And as soon as I saw Sheppy's nose, I wanted to think that I could get back by him, but I kind of knew at that point I was screwed. And, me and him had raced side by side there for a while. And I love racing against Brandon because as hard as he drives, he will give you just as much room as you give him. And when I think we probably grazed doors a few times, but it was never anything on purpose. And you race hard with each other and give each other respect and room. And that's how you want to race guys, even on a racetrack that tiny. But I knew as soon as he got a good enough run and slid me, it was, I tried to turn back underneath, didn't have enough to get to him. And then I was in the freaking hornet's nest of all the rest of those guys. And I hadn't even been to the top yet. So I go in the first time, don't enter in hard enough. Well, when I didn't do that, I don't remember RTJ slid me and then Winger slid me. And then next thing you know, this was every car was sliding me. And I look up, we have a yellow and I'm running like 10th. And I'm like, what the shit just happened? I'm like, I was leading this race. Now I'm halfway through the field. Yeah. Luckily, racetrack got to moving around. And I got back going and got back to 6th and at least made something of the night. Obviously you want to win that race. But shit happens and you don't. But, you go there and it's that event, don't get me wrong, it is for the racers, but it's for the fans. That event is all entertainment. It is for the fans. And they do a great job of putting that event on in general, from the driver intros to all the hype up stuff to the dancing videos to the interviews. And that's why I love it. I love the fans in general. I love hanging out with fans and staying after the races to see them. And so it's a pretty neat deal because you don't get that much interaction on a regular weekend, at the racetrack like you do there. I mean, the people have full access to you all weekend. If they're in the pit area, they can come right down to you. But if you go up to your merch booth, you got to walk through all the fans in the concourse. And so, I love it, man. I hope it stays forever, at least till I'm done racing. Once I'm done racing, I guess they could can it then, but I hope they keep it around at least that long. It's a spectacle, man. It's one of one, and I can't get enough of it.
Well, he sold me. I mean, I thought it was a pretty entertaining show from my couch this time, and now I'm like, man, I guess I got to be in the building for it. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the surface of it. I don't know I don't want to say a man-made racetrack because that's not the exact right way to do it. I mean, of course, all tracks are kind of man-made. But in terms of setting something up like on a concrete floor inside a dome facility like that, like the Chili Bowl, how does that feel from inside the race car, from, the seat of the car, compared to when you're actually on, your typical outdoor dirt track facility?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say the first couple years it was very different because they didn't have a great grasp of how to get the moisture out of there after they moved the dirt in. They also dealt with a lot of stuff. I mean, the first couple of years it snowed maybe a week before they were going to move the dirt in, so the dirt comes in slopping wet. And I feel like now they have figured out how to kind of layer it and move it in so that way when they get it in there, it's more hard packed. You don't see as much of the gigantic holes as we had there for a couple years. But what's weird about it is it has absolutely no grip whatsoever. So, I mean, when it's soaking wet, it's got some, but you're still wheel spinning. When it's slick, I'm telling you, it is an ice skating rink. You feel like you are on 4 jack stands if you get out in the middle of the black and it's not clean yet. And you are sitting there spinning and grinning and have no idea what the hell's going on. And it's pretty wild. And that's what makes the racing so good, because when it gets that way, you either got to be all the way down against the infill wall or you got to be all the way up beating the deck out of this thing. And it's what creates good racing. That's why you get guys coming off tail whipping, hitting somebody in the right door with their left rear quarter panel and sliders that aren't clear. And, you don't realize how slick it really is. And you're still hustling these things inside that place. It's not like you're just putting around. We can gear them things up where we're still turning $9,000. I know every time I got off the racetrack, my tack read like 9,500 or 9,600 every time from catching some holes, and so it's pretty wild. And you're not trying to do that, but if you catch a hole wrong, like this year, the straightaways for whatever reason were rough. When you're really into it and you catch a hole wrong, and next thing you know, you get the thing wide open, and it's pretty gnarly at the end of the day. So. It's just a completely different deal compared to anywhere else we go in the country. Like there's no place that you go, oh, that reminds me of the Dome. There's nothing like it. But, they do an unbelievable job. The fact that they get 7 days, to move in 300 loads of dirt, a dirt track, and this thing somehow doesn't crumble apart or can be a complete disaster. And obviously the last couple of years have really showed that, because it's been unbelievable racing, which is why you're getting bigger names every year to come to this event and who keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing event. And one of the big things about the Dome, obviously, everybody loves is the driver intro. So I want to talk about your driver intro this year. And I want to know where the inspiration came from. Was it a little bit of Noah Gregson? Was it a little bit of Dale Earnhardt Sr.? Take us through that.
Yeah, honestly, the Tim Richmond deal popped up out of
Yeah.
complete nowhere, this summer.
Yeah.
And I've always, the Tim Richmond, I've heard a lot of the Tim Richmond correlations. I got the mustache, I got the mullet, and all that stuff. And and I joked about doing it in like May of this past year of doing the Tim Richmond deal, and it just kind of stuck with me, and I was dead set on doing it. And so we went with that, and obviously, I think it turned out awesome. I think the car looked great, and it was badass. And so then, then I lock in, and I'm like, well, shit, I got to figure out what I'm going to do for this deal. When I got my fire suit made, my fire suit emulated Tim Richmond's fire suit. Well, the picture he's got his suit undone, chest hair hanging out. You always seen that. And I thought, well, shit, what a better time. He's wearing aviators and all this. And I tried to figure out what song I was going to come out to. And the Big X, the Plug song that I ended up falling on, I really like listening to his music anyways, but it was either going to be that or Stranglehold by Ted Nugent.
Nice.
And so it was one of the two. And I thought, man, I'm like, this would be perfect though, because it had a good build up. And I'm like, I'm going to walk out here just, chest hair hanging out and all this. And really that kind of happened in like the last 30 minutes before it. I was sitting there and thinking like, man, I really don't have anything outside of just walking out here with my aviators on. And so when we're standing in line, I took some duct tape over there with me and had these aviators, and me and Sheppy are sitting on the front row, and he said, what the hell are you doing with this duct tape? I said, well, I'm going to tape my lapels back and air my chest hair out and go out here and give these folks a little Donnie Trump dance and call it good. And I'm telling you, he looked at me, he said, no, you're fucking not. I said, oh, you're damn right I am. And so, so I thought, hell with it. Let's see if we could play into it some. And I tell you what, some of the pictures and stuff that I got, man, I tell you, they were awesome, and I thought it was cool. And it was funny. I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast. I think it's Meet Me at Applebee's. You guys listen to those guys? Yeah, they're a racing podcast. I've
listened to a couple episodes.
So one of the guys was all about it. He thought it was awesome. And two of them were mad at me because I did the Donnie Trump dance.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, but the Donnie, that was just a big thing at that time. And I thought, man, that'd be a perfect way to end it out, give them that. And, you got to have fun with that stuff, Hell, a couple years ago when me and Carpenter had the deal that was on Flow, I remember getting booed walking out from my walkout, and I thought, fuck, I'm in my hometown getting booed by my own people. I'm like, this sucks, and then I come out this year and I got cheers again. I thought, shit, we're back. All right, we're good. This is good. We're back. All right. I'm like, they still like me. So yeah, so no, it's fun. The intros are one of, it's the only time it happens. So you got to go out there and show a little personality and give a little life. There's only a few guys that get to walk out and just wave, and it works for them, like JD and Bab can do it whenever he wants. He's just a crowd favorite anyways. So it's pretty cool, for them. But I like to have fun and play into it. If they'd let me shotgun an actual beer, I'd do it, but that's probably frowned upon.
You gotta save that for Victory Lane one of these days.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we end up there. It'll be more than just one of them, I guarantee it. Yeah.
The last one on the Dome from me is I want to know how it compares. Like, obviously, you've done a great job selling this event. It feels obviously extra special growing up, in St. Louis or in that area, right? So I want to know, as far as the Chili Bowl compared to the Dome, in your experience, how do they compare, and can you pick one over the other without being too biased, of course?
Man, so the Chili Bowl, it's obviously it's the one of one for midget racing as well. When I was younger racing quarter midgets, my love for the Chili Bowl came from them because we used to go race in one of the little expo centers next to the Chili Bowl itself during Chili Bowl week. So we would actually race the Friday and Saturday before the Chili Bowl. We'd go down there, and then Dad and I would stay for the whole Chili Bowl week. And we used to have a suite at the Chili Bowl. So, I mean, I grew up going there. So I've always loved that race. I mean, I was there when J.J. Yaley came from the F main. You know, I was there when Stewart won the A main. I was there when McCready won. I was there when McCready landed on his head outside of turn 1. So, like, I've seen a lot of stuff at that building. And I've always loved that event. Unfortunately, the way I look at it now, when I compare those two now, I do think the Dome is a bigger event than the Chili Bowl. And I don't necessarily think it's the Chili Bowl's fault. They can only be so big because they're capped at space, and they can, you know, hell, they're trying to fit 360 cars inside this building, and there's just only so much you can do. They do a great job with it. You know, the Saturday night A main is absolutely electric. I love going and sitting with the top row rowdies off of turn 2 and drinking and carrying on and yelling and doing that shit. And it's its own specialty in itself. Personally, I just love the Dome, man. I get to, you know, I'm compete and I'm competitive in the Dome. And so it's just something cool. But for midget racing, you know, it is definitely the top of the top. And I tell people, man, if you've never been to the Chili Bowl, you got to go to the Chili Bowl. You got to go sit there and hang out for the week and get to see so much racing and so many guys who are so talented across so many walks that they're all in one building. I mean, you look at it this year, you had 3 NASCAR guys. You had, you know, you can obviously then you get, you know, your Sweets, your Tyler Courtney's. Then you get all your midget guys who are really, really good. You get Seabell thrown back in the mix. And, well, shit, I guess there was four NASCAR guys. And so, you know, there's so much that goes on into that event, and it's just so cool. And I love going there. You know, I went with Dom when he was racing from 2016 to 2019, didn't go the COVID year. And then I hadn't been back until last year. And then last year went and helped him and Nick. And then that's how my deal come together to go race it. And I don't plan on missing one for a long time. You know, I'd like to just keep going back and racing it every year as well. And, but it's a badass event.
Yeah, so before we're going to get into breaking down your whole Chili Bowl and how your week went, but before that, we're going to get into our Ripping the Top segment here. So I don't know if you've seen the podcast or how this works, but we got 4 questions. They're all food and drink related. I'm going to time you on how fast you can answer them, and we're going to put you up on the leaderboard and see if you can set the quick time. So still, as of right now, our quick time is held by Doug Leonard, the World Outlaws race director, at a 21:09 for the 4 questions.
This is some pressure.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to get my timer set up here, and then I'll do 3, 2, 1, and then I'll just start asking you the questions, and then as soon as you answer, I'm going to get into the next one, okay?
All right. These aren't like multiple choice. It's like I got to fire the answer, right?
Yeah,
okay,
you just whatever comes to your head, you let her rip.
All right. You better read them fast.
All right. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Favorite beer or drink?
Busch Light.
Favorite truck stop snack and drink combo?
Loves Mountain Dew and Skittles gummies.
Top 3 pizza toppings?
Pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms.
Favorite wing flavor?
Buffalo.
Oh, that felt good. What was that reaction, though?
We got a new quick time at the top of the board,
Hey,
ladies and
let's
gentlemen.
go!
Gordy Gundaker in the 11th
G-Man.
set at a 20.3.
Woo!
That was quick.
Don't come play with me, boys. Let's go.
That's awesome.
Man, I was a little worried.
I was wondering, like, are we ever going to get anybody beat Doug? And there we go.
The truck stop one, that one about killed me.
Yeah.
That one almost got me. I was like, wait a second.
That got Days and Bad last week. That's where he lost all his time.
That's because he's not a truck driver. He don't have to go up and down the road driving that rig. I got to drive my rig. I know exactly what I'm getting if I stop.
He's busy napping every time they pull into a Love's.
Yeah. They got to wake him up and ask him if he wants something from inside. He doesn't have to decide. That's funny shit.
Okay, so we'll get
quick
into
time.
We'll get into your 2020 5 Chili Bowl. First time you're there as a driver this year. Your prelim night, you finished 13th in the C main. Saturday night, you end up going out 9th in the N main. Just walk us through the whole week as being a driver this time instead of just sitting in the grandstands.
Yeah, it was, we went down about a week before to go get some laps at Port City. Went down there and made a couple sessions. Unfortunately, the third session, the frickin' radiator fell out of this thing and knocked into the water pump. We didn't have another one with us, so that ended our practice day a little shorter than we would have liked. So instead of getting about 100 laps, I got about 30 or 40 maybe. And so we go in there and practice day honestly went pretty good, at least I felt like, but we were kind of in the middle sessions. The racetrack was a little bit slicker and I was able to kind of maneuver around, which when I was out there and it was slower and slick, that was more up my alley. I can kind of do that. But then we go into prelim night and I draw the first heat race, which was the worst possible thing I could have done. That's all me and Dom talked about was, man, if we could just draw like heat race 5 through 8 or 9, that's going to definitely help us. I draw heat race 1, starting 4th, which is about the worst place to start in any race car that you want to be in. The first start, I got a decent start, went in there and, let's back this up. I go to hot laps and Dom's like, you're going to have to just floor this thing. Like, I hope you understand, like you got to wheel spin it and all this. And I went out there in a hot laps. I was third quick after hot laps in our group. It was still kind of slimy, but Corey Day was out there in front of me, and I think he went like an 11.7. I went like an 11.85 or something. So I was like, okay, we're not that far off from here. So I thought if we could just get a good run into turn 1 and I can somehow get the second and pace Corey, I'll be okay. Well, the first start, I get a decent start, go in there and pile into the curb, don't get sideways, get all jacked up. They flip behind me. Like, okay, I get a reprieve. The next start, Corey goes early, gets on the brakes. I went with him. I wasn't even looking at the leader. I thought when Corey goes, I'm going. Well, he starts to go, so I went to go, and then he checked up. I checked up. Next thing you know, I'm deeply in 4th by the time we get to 1. And the guy who started 3rd slid up, and I wheel hop him. And next thing you know, I'm over the cushion, and by the time I come off of turn 2, I'm running 8th. So shit's already hit the fan, and I have no clue what I'm doing out here trying to run wide open. And these things they're so different than than the late model stuff. Obviously, they're a lot lighter. They're way more temperamental. Like you get in here and get on the curb and pick the gas up, like it picks the front tires up within no time. And so I got by myself and got some good laps and caught back to the guys in front of me. But, I end up 8th, and then I think I started 8th or 9th in the C, and I got to 5th. The racetrack was slick and there was a top, and I thought, fuck, I can just go up here and just kind of hammer on this thing and at least end up decently in a decent spot. Well, then the oil fitting comes loose on the motor. It's pouring smoke all over me, and there's oil on the floor pan, and I'm just like, whatever. I'm just hammering on this thing. The guy running, we got to battling for 5th, and one of the guys spun, right in front of me, and I thought I cleared him. And about the time I thought I cleared, I went to turn left, and it clipped the left front, and it bent the drag link, and next thing you know, it was stuck, and I'm like, Jesus, and then the official comes over, and he's like yelling in my ear, and he's like, you're smoking really bad. You take it up the ramp, and they're trying to push me, and I'm looking down, and the wheels are just locked left, and I can't steer it. I'm like, hey, you gotta pick me up.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, get it out of gear, and I'm like, bro, I'm broke. Like, pick me up, and he's yelling at me, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, pick me the fuck up, and finally they're like, oh yeah,
oh, really?
I was already pissed because I was like, I wanted just to make laps, and I also know at that point that if you run 5th in the C main compared to 13th in the C main, that's like 2 mains on Saturday.
Yeah.
So and so it sucked, and that part, I was just, the competitor in me is like distraught, and I hated it for Jeff and Rockwell Security, and not that he expected me to go in there and just light the world on fire, but just you want to do good for those guys, especially they give you an opportunity. And so that part sucked, but it is what it is. And then, we went to Saturday and we start in the O main, which is easily the earliest I've ever been up to have to get in a race car and go out there. And, so we roll out for the O, and the racetrack's like 1.5 lanes wide. They don't pack the top in, so you can't really four in the fluff this thing. And just trying to make laps. And I really don't know what I'm doing, but unfortunately, neither did the rest of the guys that were in my main. So they're kind of a dart without feathers, and they're all over the place. And I transferred through into the inn, and Dom comes up to me. He's like, "You're going to have to just root and gouge your way through here." I said, "Well, there's one freaking problem. I have no idea how to root and gouge in these things. I don't really like, I feel like I'm going to land on my head if I try to move somebody out of the way." So, I end up ninth in that deal, and I got by a couple guys in the beginning, but then it just didn't really have a lot of room to race at that point, which kind of sucks. So, it was a great experience, and I loved it, and I had a lot of fun. And Jeff with Rockwell actually is, he's fortunate enough. I don't know why he likes me a lot. He's going to let us run about 8 or 10 midget races this upcoming summer. Awesome. So we're going to do a couple, and then go back to the Chili Bowl next year, and hopefully be ready, way more ready than we were this year, just with some experience. And then hopefully that way, when you get to the heat race on your prelim night, you're a little more confident and can have some more car control. That's the biggest thing I didn't have. I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know where I needed to position myself. And, you watch guys all the time. Hell, I watched Nick and Dom do it. Dom wheel hops a guy, lands on his head. Nick stuffs it in the cushion when it was slimy. He lands on his head. And I'm thinking, great. Both my teammates have landed on their head. And Dom on Wednesday said, "Well, if you don't flip it, we're just going to consider tonight a win." So, we made it out of there at least alive. But unfortunately, then I get towed back on the wrecker. So all three of us came back on the wrecker, one time that week. So that part wasn't all that fun. But outside of it, I had a great time. And I'm already excited, to go back for 2026.
Absolutely. I can imagine. I mean, talk to us about being a bit of a hired gun for Flo as well. I mean, you go down there and you end up as a racer, but then you get to do some extra work on the side too, right?
Yeah, that stuff, I really enjoy the broadcast stuff. It's really cool to see what they do. I think it's neat, just watching over the last couple of years, like on Flow, when they get guys like Randy Weaver in there and Dale McDowell's got on there, and you get some of the driver perspectives from guys who really know what they're doing and talking about. You get better, you just get better questions and conversation pieces. Maybe not better, but it's just a different aspect of what you normally hear. And so it's kind of fun. And the Wilner and all those guys were down at my trailer on Thursday night after the races, and we were shooting the shit with each other. And he said, "Well, why don't you come do some ramp interviews or something like that tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, hell, if you guys let me do it, I'll gladly come do it." So I went down there on Friday and, told him, I was like, "Well, I'll do the qualifiers." The first thing I do when I put the headset on is I said, "Hey, let's not get too far out of bounds here. Let's keep it kind of family fun." And I thought, well, that's pretty easy. It worked out great that the first interview I got was Justin Grant. Me and Justin are really good buddies, so that made it easy. We damn near had a full interview before they ever keyed on to us. And I wish they would have almost had that one as well, because it was really good. And then, you get a couple, get Darren Pittman. I've been fortunate enough to kind of get to know him, so that was cool. And then I did not know Tyler Edwards at all, and I just happened to look on the sheet before I walked over to him and saw he was from Oklahoma. So I thought, well, this would be a perfect time to ask him about, this is a hometown deal. And then I'm sitting there looking at him like, he's a scruffy dude, long hair. I'm like, he definitely drinks beer. So I thought I've already overstayed my welcome, so I can go a little off the rails here and see if we could talk about drinking beer. And they ate that up. I thought it was a lot of fun. And actually, Michael Rigsby had texted me right after that deal and said, "Man, you're killing it on there." He said, "We need to have you on Flow more." And I told him, I said, "Man, I'd love to go do some more." So I'm working with Michael, so he might see me on Flow a couple times this year at some random events. Don't really know yet. We've just kind of small talked a few things, but it's definitely something I would love to do. I enjoy doing it. It's fun. I think my personality leans right into it. So I think it'll be cool. I enjoy doing that, and I'm not scared to have a microphone in my hand.
Yeah. Talk to us about the Chili Bowl. Not many people talk about it, but talk about the Chili Bowl nightlife after the races are over. Everybody's in the pit area. What's maybe some stories you can tell, to some things you've seen?
Yeah, shit. I've seen a lot. I can tell you that much. Can't share all that, but no, it's really cool. It's just, obviously the pit area is one big area. You feed right off the racetrack and the grandstands, and you walk right into the pit area. So, I am always one at the dirt, at the late models track. Like, I've always got a big speaker with me, and we're jamming out after. And For Christmas this year, my dad actually decided he wanted to buy us this super boom box. It's about 4 foot tall, has it's like 1,800 watts of speakers. And so our opening act with this thing was the Chili Bowl this year. And so on Wednesday after our prelim night, we went ahead and got this thing out. And we actually set it up on the back of the midget. We stood it up on the tail tank and had this thing just wide open. And we had people hanging out at the pit area, and we're just jamming and playing old '90s country music, and just having a good time. And that's what's cool about that event is it's the same deal. You have full access to the drivers and the teams and that stuff. So as soon as the races are over, nobody leaves. Everybody just comes down, and you're drinking and carrying on, and then you leave there, and you can either go to a couple of the bars that are in town, or you go to the Hard Rock and do some gambling and hang out there, which we did way too much, unfortunately. And, it was fun. Like, me and RTJ and Jeremy Burnett, who owns Millbridge, and Mitchell Moles, and all kinds of guys, you go over there and hang out. Hoffman was only there one night. We went and watched the Commanders game the one night when we were there, I think after the practice night, and it just so happened Ty Gibbs come rolling up. So, he's with Washington. So it was kind of fun. We were up there laughing and carrying on when Washington won. And it's just such a cool deal. And you literally never know who you're going to go out in the town with and just run into. It happens at every bar you go to. You walk in and see one of your buddies or see somebody that's a big time racer or whatever. But then next thing you know, you're also standing with all the race fans. So it's what makes that event really cool, is just being able to go out and experience some of those things. And it's a lot of late nights. I can tell you that much. A lot of Waffle House at 4 or 5 in the morning. And we ate Waffle House way too many times that week. I can tell you that much.
That's awesome. Well, let's look ahead at the 2025 season here, Gordy. And you mentioned a little bit about your midget deal for the summertime. But in terms of late model stuff, what do you got coming down the pipeline? Where are you planning on running? Anything new, or maybe any national tour stuff that you're thinking of doing this year?
Yeah, so we'll do the plan is probably about 50 to 60 late model races. That's kind of what we're shooting for. We'll open our season at Maquoketa in March with the Mars Series, the Nivy 50 with, Hoker helps put on. From there, it'll kind of be a scatter deal. Definitely do Mars stuff. We got probably quite a few World Outlaw and Lucas races mixed in there. And then from there, just kind of bounce around. We're definitely going to aim. We'll do the Illinois Speed Week when they go and run LaSalle, Spoon River, Lincoln, and then it goes to Farmer City Fairbury with Lucas. I don't know for sure. We'll definitely be at the World 100. I'm hoping we'll be at the Dream in June. I'm not for sure on that. Outside of that, just kind of want to. We haven't really sat down and made an entire schedule yet, but I do know it's we'll be racing quite a bit. I plan on racing pretty much every weekend. We might have a couple weekends off here and there just for regroups and just take a break, just because we don't have to be on the road racing 90, 100 times. And 50, 60 races is still a lot. We'll do the PDC, we'll do the USA Nationals at Cedar Lake. I'd like to get back out to Atomic in Ohio. I really love that place. That place is awesome. Mm-hmm. We'll definitely do. I think they race at Burlington with the Mars Series. I think the Slocum race, Tri-City's got a huge World Outlaw race in September. We've got some Mars races there. We'll definitely do the Show Me 100. So, it'll rack up pretty quick. It doesn't take long to get to that race mark. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates and lets us race some. I know last year we got rained out a ton trying to chase the MLRA points. We're getting back. We're building a new car right now. So we had 2 cars, got a motor sitting at Clements that's coming back fresh. We had a fresh one that came back for the Dome. So we're sitting in a good spot, leading into this season. I got some great new partners that are coming on board that I'm going to announce here in the next week or two. And I'm just, really excited for that. I'm thankful for all the people who have sponsored me for a long time, the guys who have come on recently, and it's truly the only way we can do this deal at the end of the day. So it's it should be a good 2025. I felt like we ended the year on a high note last year. There was the one race at Wheatland. There was the 12,000 win race. I felt like we should have won it and end up third, and that's just the way it goes. And so to kind of end the year with speed, and then you go to the Dome and run good, it kind of propels your 2025 season, I think, a little bit to give you some confidence going back forward. I definitely want to win a couple races this year. It sucks when you don't win races. We had like a 3-year dry spell there. I clipped one off in 23, and then didn't win any last year, and I felt like I had some good chances and just didn't work out. So it's definitely a goal, is to win, 3 or 4 races for sure this year. Just want to finish up front a lot more. We had some stupid issues last year that were self-inflicted at times, and that's partly my fault, just trying to do a lot. I got a little girl now and a business, and it's easy to get lost in those things, but I feel like now we've got a new kid that's going to be working on our crew, who actually works here at my screen printing business too, and that's going to be a big help as well. So all those things go a long way, and just gets me pumped up to really get rolling here. Watching the guys race in Florida, that definitely makes me want to scratch the itch. But there's just so much racing. From March through October, it's like you don't have to go down there and do it, and it's expensive to go down there and race with those guys. And we did it there with the Outlaws for those couple of years. Man, if you're off just a little bit down there, you feel like about this tall, and so that part is it's fun. That's why you do it. You got to go race against those guys to be as good as them. So that's why we will definitely be hitting 5s, 10s, and 20s, and 50s, and 100s, and whatever else we can do, and racing as much as we can, and hopefully getting some good results.
Awesome, yeah. Excited to see what you do in 2025 for sure. I know you saw the post earlier, shared it, so we got this segment, we got our follower question segment. We got in a couple, and I actually got in one that was just a statement, but I'm going to read it to you anyways.
Oh, perfect.
But our first one comes from Brandon Goodman Photo. He's a photographer. I don't know if you've ever met him or not. I use his photos on the page pretty frequently. But he says, do you have a favorite photo from the Chili Bowl?
Yeah. Brandon's got it. Yeah, actually, he sent it to me, and it was badass. So it was, that's one of my favorite things too. I'm a big picture hog guy. I love getting good photos. When I traveled the Outlaw Tour, we had you meet a bunch of different photographers when you're out there, and I tried to get photos from a lot of the places we went to that were new, just to kind of have for a keepsake, and so I try to keep them. I got, try to hang them on my house. I can't hang too many because Savannah won't let me, but I have a few, but I've got a bunch stacked up that one day when I build my bar in my man cave, they'll be littered on the walls. So yeah, the one that Brandon got, it was awesome. So, it was pretty cool. Some of those photos in a completely different realm, the wheels up and all that stuff. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
So our second one comes from Blade Kearns 1.
Oh, Jesus.
Says, do you know him?
Yeah.
Okay, I figured so because the question was like, I thought so. He said, who won the Blues game last night? Question mark.
I knew he was going to go there. Freaking knew it. Hey, Blade. That's for Blade right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so you big hockey guy then?
Oh, I love the Blues. I'm a huge Blues fan. I always have been. And so, yeah, I love them. And so Blade's an Oilers guy.
Okay.
So we normally have like a $20 gentleman's bet on who, going to the game on Oilers Blues. And he called me the other day and said, hey, Edmonton's playing, in St. Louis. He's like, it's only like 3 hours for me down here in Kentucky. He's like, you want to go? I'm like, hell yeah. So him and a couple of our other buddies, Brad and Skinny, went. And unfortunately the Blues lost in overtime. So that shit happens, but yeah, it sucked because we were losing 1-0 and then we scored twice and I was flipping them off the whole time and give it to them. And the Oilers tied it with like 2 minutes to go. And then Connor McDavid does what Connor McDavid does and ends the game. Yeah. So yeah, shit happens, but yeah. Oh, well.
Okay. So our next one's actually the statement is from Captain Pike, 2205. It says, any man that rolls out looking like Tim Richmond at the Dome has my automatic respect.
Hell yeah. Captain Pike, you got my respect.
And then we got a design team that you've partnered up with recently, TJT Designs. They asked, what's your favorite choice of beer?
Oh, it's Busch Light, baby. Busch Light every night. Yep, no matter what. Yeah, Busch Light's the go-to. Really, anything Anheuser-Busch is me, not Bud Light, but Busch Light, Bud Select, Bud Heavies. Yep, you feed me those bad boys. I don't drink Miller Lite. Tastes like piss water. Coors Light, it's okay. I'll drink a Mick Ultra. That's fine. But yeah, Busch Light's the go-to.
I was gonna say, I feel like where you are at the world, it's kind of almost like a written rule that you gotta have some kind of Bud product, right?
I mean, hell, you go to the Cardinals games, the Blues games, it's the only thing you can get. That's the best way to do it. So, yeah, I got a couple buddies who've worked for Anheuser-Busch for a long time. So actually, one of them, he dropped me off a full case of Bud Heavies here a couple weeks ago. So I got them here at the office for a good time whenever I need them.
There you go.
Well, you know what I'm hearing now? I gotta say it. We got the Tim Richmond kind of impersonation going. I know there was a Budweiser car in Tim Richmond's past. You got a little connection. I think we gotta get a Budweiser late model car or something.
It might have to be. That might be a good play. Yeah, I need to hit up Anheuser-Busch and see if I can get them on the race car for the Dome. That might be a hell of an idea. Problem is, I don't know if they'd be able to funnel us enough beer to get through that weekend.
Fair enough.
We got one more left from Pat Reiser. It says, how does it feel to have the best lip carpet in the pit area?
I like it. Yeah, it's kind of funny. The mustache deal. It actually started back in college. I played baseball in college, and I could grow a mustache back then, and so all my buddies were like, man, you got to grow that thing out, and they used to do it all the time. They'd have me shave it into a mustache just because it was great. So I hadn't really, been utilizing it there for a couple of years, and then I don't know, probably 2022, I just shaved it into it one day, and I decided I was going to grow this mullet out, and ever since then, I just kind of left it, I've just kind of rolled with it for a while. And it is quite literally funny, though, how many people recognize me just based purely off the fact of my mustache. So that's a talking point for a lot of people that'll come up to me and they're like, man, that's a great mustache, whatever. I'm like, I guess I tell everybody, I'm like, it's a gift and a curse, I guess, the way you say it. So, but I enjoy it, whatever. It's fun. So it does get a little long, and you will notice, like, if you go to get like a fountain soda and you take a drink of it and you're not paying attention, like just like not out of a straw, it'll just get stuck right in top one. And then next thing you know, it's just like there's just like soda or whatever it is. And you're like, what in the hell? Yeah. And so, yeah, the other night my daughter was making fun of me. I guess I took a drink of chocolate milk, and she was pointing at me and like laughing. And I'm like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, well, like this. I'm like, oh shit. Got the milk mustache. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, oh yeah, it's fun though. I enjoy it, and then the mullet thing. I tell you what's kind of funny is at the Dome especially, but I'll have like 12, 13-year-old kids come up and they got a haircut into a mullet, and they will walk up and they'll take their hat off, like, I got a mullet too, and the next thing you know, we got to take a picture and all that. And then I'll always give them crap and be like, well, you got to grow a mustache next, you got to get the whole package if you want to do it. So, yeah, most times their parents are like, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, oh, come on, let them live. So, oh, yeah. But it's fun. You got to play into it, and I guess not all the old NASCAR drivers had mustaches. My dad had one back when he raced in the 80s and 90s. So I just carry on the tradition.
Nice. Absolutely. All right, Beef, you want to wrap her up? Are we going to call it here?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to end with one question that's not related to dirt racing or racing in general. You got any interests outside racing? Are you a golf guy, sports guy? Do you play hockey?
Big like sports that? Guy. Big sports guy. I'm a diehard sports fan in a lot of different realms. Like I said, I played baseball in college, so I grew up, playing ball, and all of my best friends and I went to high school together, played ball through there. Fortunate enough, there was 13 seniors my high school senior year. We won state our senior year, which was badass, and so then that's where my love for the Cardinals and the Blues and all that stuff's come from. My cousin's a big hockey guy, so we go to Blues games together. We watch, when the Cardinals won the World Series or the Blues won the Stanley Cup, we're down there at the parades and celebrating that. And yeah, and then I definitely do love playing golf. I wish I got to play more, honestly. So it's, I got a bunch of buddies around here who go golfing all the time. And so we try to get out and play some when we can. And it's fun when we go to like the PDC and they have the golf tournament and those things. And hell, when we ran the Outlaw Tour, Yes, at 23 when Francis took over. Francis is a big golfer. Chris Madden's a big golfer. So we used to try and then Matty Watkins that works for the Outlaws, that's an official. He's a really, really good golfer. So he used to try and find us places to go all the time. So when we would be on the road, we'd be playing golf once or twice a week and playing nice courses and doing different stuff. So that part was always, always fun. And I enjoyed that. It's fun to get away kind of from the racing and the business stuff sometimes. You get out there with your buddies and drink some beers and shank some shots in the woods and hit some balls in the water and whatever. And you throw a club or two or do those things, yeah, it's fun and it's like I said, it's a good release outside of the racing stuff. But it always ends up competitive because you always either end up playing for money or you're playing your buddies for money or you're playing in a scramble or doing those things. So you don't really get away from the competitiveness of it, but it's fun to go do that. And I get to do it with my buddies that are around here who I don't get to see a lot. So any chance I get to go do that, I definitely do. We went the other night, actually. One of my good friends owns a indoor golf place that's got a bunch of simulators. We went up there for his birthday and played 18 holes and did that. So I hadn't swung a club in a while, and you could tell that was for sure.
Hey, you can't lose them on the simulator, at least. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I said. I lost no golf balls. So no, it was fun. So it's a good time. So yeah, I've definitely lost my fair share of golf balls in the days, but so yeah, outside of that, that's really about it. Sports is everything relates for me around competitiveness and sports. And, outside of that, I love spending time with my family and stuff when we get to do that. But they go to the races a lot and my little girl loves racing and, she's born into it as well. Her grandpa's Donnie Schatz. So, that really leads you up into racing. So, tonight before I headed over here to do this, we were sitting there and they pushed him out for hot laps and she's pointing the screen going, Papa, Papa, and so she's all about it. So she loves the racing and she'll be hell on wheels, I'm sure, one day as well.
Awesome. Well, Gordy, it was an awesome interview, man. Thank you for coming on, and we wish you nothing but luck in the 2025 season, man.
Heck yeah, guys. I appreciate you having me. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheers, brother. I appreciate it.
Yep. Appreciate it, boys.